Welcome to Hope Through the Hard, a curated coalition podcast where we talk honestly about life struggles and how to face them in healthy, hope-filled ways. In 2 Corinthians 4, Paul says, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." That's the purpose of this space. Real conversations about the hard things in life and the hope that carries us through. Visit curatedcoalition.com to find our coaching services and book a free consultation.
Hi, I'm Levi. This is Ashley, and we have Lincoln running production today.
Yep.
Lincoln got the kid question?
Yes. Okay, so it's 2 questions. What was your least favorite chore as a child?
Least favorite chore as a child? Starting dinner.
Favorite chore?
Yep.
Probably one of the worst was cleaning. My parents owned a restaurant, so part of one of my chores was cleaning the kitchen and cleaning the stove with pickle juice. At one point, we did that to get the grime off of it. That was
gross, because it had vinegar in it.
Yeah, and the pickle smell, and
I just didn't like starting dinner. I would do anything other than
Start the dinner.
yeah.
The second question. What was your most favorite chore as a child?
Oh, I didn't have a most favorite chore. There was that wasn't a thing.
What was the least worst one?
I think my favorite was probably going and getting dinner because we ate out whenever in high school. So it was, my dad would say, "I'll buy, you fly." That meant I got to drive and go get dinner.
Yeah, I
did that a lot. That was fun.
Didn't really have a favorite chore. There wasn't really a favorite chore.
Yeah.
I didn't mind any of them except dinner. I just didn't want to cook. I had like brass candlesticks. I would polish the brass. I would anything to not have to start dinner.
But that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fun question.
Yeah, good job,
As
Link.
you had your favorite chore.
Yeah,
today.
what's your favorite chore, Lincoln?
Taking the trash out
Why?
because I can go outside.
Okay. What's your least favorite chore, Lincoln? Bathrooms. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and you get to do them both on Saturday, don't you?
Yep.
Today, we're kind of going back more into the coaching realm today, and we're going to talk a little bit about something that I think every human being on the planet struggles with.
Yes.
They just don't know it has a name.
Correct.
So I want you to think about that moment when something hits you and you suddenly feel yourself maybe shrink. Maybe you like tighten. Maybe you get like a pit in your stomach. Maybe you just get angry and like explode on someone. Maybe you're like me and you're like, I think I'm going to go to the other room. You withdraw, whatever. That's your body reacting before your brain even catches up. Like you don't even know what you're doing. That's called a trigger. And so today, that's what we're going to be talking about, not in a shame-based way, because like I said, everyone has things that trigger them. Not trying to be dramatic, although sometimes when you are triggered, you feel dramatic. Everything feels heightened. So we're just slowing down. We just want to have a conversation. I feel like education around triggers is important because once you understand what's causing you to react and that everyone has them, you're able to then move forward in a different way. And
and a lot of people, I think, view triggers as something that is kind of actually wrong, where so-and-so annoys me, they just trigger me, or I'm oversensitive. And so people say, oh, you're too sensitive and you're over, in the situation. So, and I think that's kind of what happens of how you can start to identify some of those situations of what's happening.
Yeah, because I think people think that, oh, I'm just irritated.
Right.
Well, it's not just an irritation.
Right.
Your nervous system is actually reacting. So your body is responding to something that feels familiar, whether it's that person, or maybe it's a situation, maybe it's a place. Even if the moment that you're currently in isn't actually dangerous. It's your brain is being alerted to something in your past that was dangerous or that your body perceived as dangerous. So
And it's hard to figure out that situation of there is something in your past.
yeah, that is kind of where our coaching lives. Like,
Correct.
what is the thing in your past that's making you react and respond this way?
Yep.
And so I will say, before we jump in too far, once you figure out that someone that you love is triggered, don't tell them that they're triggered.
Come on.
Actually did that to me this week, and I was like,
Because you were.
I was super triggered, but I did not appreciate being told that at the time. So,
Yes.
so first of all, we'll just define what is a trigger.
Yeah.
So a trigger is an automatic, emotional, or physiological response that's rooted in a past experience that has not been fully processed and certainly has not been healed.
Right.
So, in simple terms, it's an emotional flashback. Your emotions are reacting to something that's happened in the past based on some small stimulant in the present. It can feel like an emotional hijacking. I admitted I was super triggered earlier this week. I definitely felt emotionally hijacked. Yeah. It can seem like a sudden overreaction, which is probably how you thought that I was behaving.
Right.
Like, totally overreacting all of a sudden, or it can feel like a total shutdown. So you often don't have any idea why it feels so big, and neither do the people around you.
You've gone through some of it, and you've also felt that. So it's not just I'm frustrated. It's your body telling you, here's some of the situations. And once you start to dive into understanding this about yourself, then you start seeing it in others, and how can you help in those situations, I think is huge, because it's our body reacting to it. So if we hurt ourselves, we stub our toe, our body's going to react and say there's pain here in the situation. Well, our body's reacting, and it may feel like, oh, I'm just frustrated. No. It's saying that there's something that's tying this back to original pain that you've had.
Yes.
Which is how our body works like that.
And also really frustrating because we don't understand what the something old that we're reacting to is. And we talk about it in the coaching world as like your inner child. It doesn't have to be a youth version of yourself. Like, it can be a 5 years ago version of yourself or a 10 years ago version of yourself. So it's important to remember that your nervous system does not understand the difference between past and present. It is just, there is something that's sending off a red flag, like a sensor to your brain saying, we've been here before, we've seen this before.
Right.
React, do something, whether that's, whatever your trigger response is, whether it's fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. Like, it doesn't matter. That's what your body is telling you. So where do triggers come from? I feel like we've sort of talked a little bit about this, but they usually form around unmet emotional needs.
Right.
Really rooted a lot of times in your childhood.
Correct.
Maybe a childhood attachment wound, repeated stress. That's where it's going to show up. Maybe not so much in your early childhood, but maybe around a job, which you can talk about a little bit. Or moments when we felt powerless, rejected, dismissed, or just in general unsafe. So they develop when something is painful and that happens, and we don't have the support or the safety or the tools to process it, which is why we see so much of it in childhood. Because we don't have the tools.
Right. And this pain is not weakness. I think that's a key thing to be able to say. It's not a weakness that you have this unprocessed pain.
Right.
I've talked about a lot of my different pain, and one of the earliest ones is from my grandma dying and not being taught how to grieve as a young child, which, okay, a lot of adults don't know how to grieve.
Correct.
So it's not that you're weak because you didn't learn how to deal with situations as a child. It's just learning as you get older, hey, how do I feel and how do I process that pain? How do I process the situation of what's going on that's causing me to be triggered and respond in a way that may not be my normal responses?
Right. So can you talk a little bit about the repeated stress? Just because I think you have experienced a lot of that repeated stress. Can you talk about how you recognized first of all, that it was even triggering you.
Right.
And that it might be something that you hadn't fully processed.
Right.
And how you respond differently now.
Well, and still processing and having that feeling, because it's an abandonment issue of I feel abandoned from a childhood, and so whenever I get into situations where people I'm trying to talk to or try to work for or do, and I feel like I'm getting called out, hey, you've not done this right, or hey, this isn't going the right direction. I have that feeling that you just said.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, and now I've recognized whenever I start to have that. And my quick response is just to try to make everybody happy.
Yes.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's be happy. Let's move forward. Hey, this situation's not that bad. And it's true, because I can make it really big. And sometimes people see the situations and we make it, the problem's not this big anymore, it's this big.
Because you've got a magnifying glass over it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, it's just a situation.
Yeah.
Breathe. Take a step back and realize now I feel that pit, and I take a second to process. Oh, you feel like that. You're okay. You're safe. Just answer the question.
Yeah.
Just answer the situation. And so then it's not that big of a deal. Nobody else probably even had a clue that I feel that way in different situations. It's just, hey, this is how I feel because I felt abandoned as a kid because I didn't know how to grieve my grandma. And now I'm trying to make people happy. So I'm not abandoned again.
Yeah. So how would you say that that like repeated stress affected family? Because it didn't just happen at work, right? Like the stress was around work.
Right.
How did it affect family?
Well, yeah, because everything carries over, right? So then you don't only try to make people at work happy, then you're trying to make everybody at home happy. And then you start trying to please everybody, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because you can't. You don't have time. I don't have time to do everything at work and everything at home that everybody's asking for. And then you start feeling overwhelmed, and then you start getting angry, or I do. And then it becomes a fight trigger response instead of so much as a fawn response.
Yeah. So I think here's the shift, right? Like I would venture a guess. I felt broken this week when I was triggered. I would venture a guess, correct me if I'm wrong, that you felt broken when you were triggered and you couldn't even identify it. You just had the feeling, and then it carried over to everywhere else. The trigger isn't proof that you're broken.
Right.
It's proof that something still needs to be healed. It's pointing to an area of unmet need emotionally, and it's saying, please take the time to process me. Please take the time to heal me. Please take the time to reassure me that I'm safe. Right. All it is just pointing to the area that you need to work on caring for.
Right.
So,
and I think this is a great way of us kind of showing, here's what triggers look like of different situations. And for us, what does it look like?
Yeah.
And for us, it's how we felt in different situations. Maybe it's words, maybe it's actions, maybe it's just something reminded us of something else that's kind of hidden in our back of our head, triggering us and making us feel like something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's really good. Because it's important that we identify how do triggers show up. And it's really in 3 ways. The first one is with our emotions. Generally out of proportion to whatever the situation that we are currently in.
Correct.
The second is physical sensations. You were talking about the pit in your stomach. Whenever you felt like you did something wrong, especially at work. And then the third is relational reactions. I said when I was triggered this week, I was upset at you, and you were saying like, this feels disproportionate to the situation. So those are the 3 ways: your emotions, physical sensations, and then relational reactions. And so maybe your anger feels out of proportion. Maybe you are suddenly defensive. Like you are making like, you use the term often, like, I feel like I'm being attacked. And so you get defensive. Maybe you just shut down mid-conversation. I have a tendency to do that. Like, I'm done. I'm just going away. Maybe you feel small or you feel ashamed. Maybe you have tightness in your chest or a racing heart. Maybe you just want to leave the room.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Just walk away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and when someone says something simple, I think, and then all of a sudden it becomes a massive situation. That's a usual very big red flag. Hey, here's a clue. Here's something that's going on. And it's not even that situation sometimes. It could, as you got upset with me because I didn't say thank you fast enough.
Yeah. Yes,
And
I
it's
did.
like, okay, well, why? Well, because you don't feel appreciated. You don't
Right.
feel the different things, and it triggers other things of our past, of how we've been married for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And it triggered something. Okay, understand.
Yes.
And so things, again, we are still working through all of this stuff as well and trying to understand. And healing is messy.
Yes, very messy.
It's not just simple stuff, but it can become something massive. But then realize also the placement of that. Here's a clue. We're triggered. There's a reason.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to notice or to just take note that this is why you see older couples that live completely separate lives. Especially like when we were younger, like before divorce was so common, I guess, you would see older couples that just really didn't talk, didn't have a lot in common because they never learned how to process the pain from previously in their marriage.
Right.
Or as a child, or maybe even before they got married, something would happen and they couldn't process the pain. So you have to learn to process things and to heal them.
Right.
That's the whole point. God does not want us to go through life unhealed.
Right.
And he wants to meet us in the mess.
Right.
It is messy.
Right.
He wants to meet us in the middle of the mess and provide the tools and the equipment and the love and the compassion and the affirmation to help clean the mess up.
Right. Well, and I think also grace,
Yes.
forgiveness has to happen through all that too.
Yes.
And so in the mess is the best time for the forgiveness to really take place because this is how we're feeling and start letting that come in to those situations and learning to let that to drop into those situations will help, I think, heal
Yeah.
and grow through the patterns of, yes, you made me feel this way and I've forgiven you. I don't need to be this angry with you because, yes, I have forgiven you for those situations.
Yeah. So just to brief recap before we move on, the size of the reaction is usually telling you that you're touching on something older. If your reaction is disproportionate, you're touching on something older, and it's time to work on that. So triggers aren't weakness, they're signals. So your trigger is not the enemy. It feels like it a lot
It
of
does.
times.
Big time.
It's also not your partner's enemy, although it might feel like it. It's a signal. It's your nervous system saying there is something here that hasn't been loved yet. And like I was saying, this is the opportunity to let the love of Jesus come in and work on that because triggers happen around unresolved pain that needs to come out. The whole method that I think you grew up with and I grew up with where pain goes under a rug and then we just put the rug back until it has a giant pile underneath it, that's not helpful. And so that is instead an invitation for love to come in and clean the mess up and then move it completely out.
Yeah, which is hard because a lot of us have grown up in those trigger moments of I have shame or I'm blaming you because it's your fault, not mine.
Yeah.
Or we just suppress it.
Yeah.
And that's not the way to be able to really move forward.
Hang on.
Bless you.
Excuse me. Sorry. You can keep talking now.
No, I'm telling you.
Okay. Yeah. So I think instead of saying like, what's wrong with me, which I feel like is the shame-based approach that you were just talking about, what's wrong with me or shaming you, what's wrong with you?
Right.
The better question to ask is what has happened to me that I don't understand fully.
Yeah.
So,
And that's a huge question, and not something that comes quick either. It takes some time to process through all of this stuff.
yes.
And we can also understand and read this in the Bible, because it is something. Is this biblical? Did God create us?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so with it, these things are biblical, because we see in stories the humans back then are no different than today, and we can read stories of how they reacted in those situations.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that scripture is really full of emotional reactivity.
Big time.
I mean, David lamented deeply. He had an emotional reaction where, all of the Psalms are full of it. The
Right.
stories that you see where he's running from Saul and then making brash decisions later when Jonathan is dead and Saul is, still angry and his wife has left him. And you see all of these emotional reactions,
Oh, yeah.
rash decisions that he makes. And then you see him swing the pendulum the total other direction
Right.
with deep lament. He was a very emotional person. And I think that we get lost sometimes in the heroism of the story,
Yeah.
with David and Goliath, and we focus in on that and we lose the real personhood that
Right.
he shows us, because he does feel the full range of emotions and he reacts poorly sometimes in his emotions,
Yeah.
which is also human.
Right.
So the interesting thing to me is the reason that Jonah had such a huge reaction to going to Nineveh was because those people had wronged his people in the past.
Right.
And so he was quite literally triggered
Oh, yeah.
by God's request to go there and to speak to these people and to tell them that it was time for them to repent or they would face judgment. He was sitting there happily waiting for them to face judgment because
Right.
he was so triggered by them.
Watch a bomb drop.
Yeah. And
Didn't happen.
and it didn't happen. And so, he is really a good example of someone who was triggered. You can see in the story of the Bible why he was so angry. And it was because there was an old wound.
Yep.
An old wound to his family, an old wound to his people, and he did not want to be the one
Right.
to offer them grace.
Right. Not at all.
So I think you can also see it in Peter when Peter is so afraid that he denies Jesus 3 times. And then when the rooster crows, he realizes what he's done. And Jesus later restores him. But Jesus goes back to that triggered fear that he was in and makes him affirm his faith 3 times after he denied 3 times.
Right.
And so triggers are human.
Yep.
And so scripture shows us something I think that's important and that's powerful. And that is, emotion is not sin, but our response can be.
Can be.
So healing is possible.
Yes.
And you see that with all 3, all men, healing is possible.
Yep.
So trigger responses. How do we respond? We're going to do a full episode next week on the 4 responses, but I do just want to mention them briefly.
Okay.
When you are triggered, you generally move into one of 4 trauma responses. And we say trauma because they're all rooted in something that your body has perceived as trauma.
Right.
And that is fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. And so we're not going to unpack those today.
Nope.
I'm just going to kind of lay them out. That's what they are. But just know that when your nervous system activates, it chooses one of those 4 ways to protect itself.
Right. And that's our brain trying to keep us safe. And in the situations where we've built some strategies to help in some of these situations, really kind of blinders, just to try to approach it to not ever feel that again. And it's just our brain trying to process and trying to have strategies to be helpful. But until you start to heal and understand those triggers of why that's happening, this is just how your body's going to respond to try to protect you.
Yeah. And I can't wait for you to kind of unpack that, because I really think next week, but I really think that it's important to talk about what the brain does.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's your brain putting blinders around the situation to protect you.
Yep.
So we would like to kind of just talk to you today about how to walk through a trigger. So what do we actually do when we feel triggered? Here's the framework. It's very easy. Pause, notice, name, and then respond. We can walk through that. Do you want to kind of...
Pause is just creating space to take a breath and put your hand over your heart and just breathe. Pause. Like I said earlier, this is something I try to do. It's like, hey, pause. I feel that pit. Pause. Just take a breath, breathe, and then process a little bit to be able to help what might be escalating to de-escalate.
Yeah. And then notice. This is really important. Notice means you just ask yourself, like, what am I feeling? Where do I feel it in my body? We've talked about it, like the pit in your stomach, the racing heart. Maybe your hands shake. Maybe you can feel like, your body reacting that way. Where do you feel it in your body? And then, is it anger? Because I think that that's often the emotion that people start with, but it's really something much deeper.
Yeah.
And in our coaching, we have a tool that we use to help people more accurately pinpoint the emotion, because it's not, often it is not anger, it's something deeper.
Yeah. And then the big part of really kind of getting to the source of all of this is naming it. And how do you name that? It can start small, but then whenever you really start to dig into it, some questions to ask is, when did I start to feel this feeling? Whenever I'm getting questioned, when did I really start feeling that feeling of being questioned? And a lot of times it'll remind us back as a kid. What does that remind me of? Maybe it might be a specific situation with an argument with a parent or sibling or somebody else, a teacher.
Someone at school
How old did I feel? And because sometimes I felt like a little kid in situations like I'm just a little 5-year-old kid all of a sudden. It's like, oh, and it's crazy how our body does that. And that's a huge thing and can be powerful of showing us, hey, if I name this specific thing, then I can actually do something with it.
Yes. When you identify the appropriate emotion, that is it. Okay. So how do you then respond with intention? Instead of reacting outwardly, the goal is to apply compassion inwardly. So we have lots of things, we call them words of affirmation, that we coach people to practice. I see you. I see your hurt. You didn't deserve that response as a child. Or just something simple as, I'm safe now. It's okay. I am safe now. So again, triggers are opportunities for healing, for transformation, and for redemption. And they are the place where the love, and I think you were right, the grace of Jesus can come in and offer full healing.
Yeah. Well, and something that has to happen in all of this is self-compassion. And we are the worst at it.
We are.
I'm the worst at it. And being compassionate on ourselves is something that is kind of part of where the forgiveness of the situations happen. That's when we can start seeing the grace. That's when we can start healing through the process of, hey, yes, I keep messing up, but it's okay. I'm striving to be better. I'm striving to do better. Why? Because God also loves me. And here's the other things about me that God sees. And those words of affirmation are huge.
Yeah. And we generally, when we're coaching someone through triggers and trigger responses, we really try to do biblical self-compassion and affirmation. Because I think that most of us were taught to be hard on ourselves.
Correct.
We heard things like, rub some dirt in it. No pain, no gain. Good things come to those who wait. Like, you just have to tough it out. Well, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, all of the, like, there are so many of them that it's hard to even encompass them. That's what we were taught. We were taught to be hard on ourselves
Right.
and that you were not going to get anywhere in life unless you were hard on yourself. The problem is that healing doesn't grow in that shame.
Nope.
And so you don't see the result and fruit of good things when you are constantly living in shame and self-blame, and self-hatred, really. And perfectionism. And like, you're not going to see healing when you're living in those spaces.
Not at all.
You're going to see healing when you learn to love yourself, and show yourself compassion, because God loves you. God made you. God loves you. Do you sin? Yes. But when you repent, he sees you as completely righteous.
Right.
And so when we learn to love ourselves with just a measure of the love and the grace that God, our Father, has for us, that's how we clean up the mess without condemning ourselves for making the mess.
So some reflecting questions we want you to start asking yourself, to just start processing a little bit of this, is what are some of my most common triggers, or what's some of the environments or the people or phrases that's happening that's causing me to trigger?
Yeah. What do you do
Yeah.
when you're triggered? And again, that's a conversation that we're going to like jump more into next week. But like, how do you respond? How do you react when you're triggered? Is self-compassion hard for you?
Yes.
Why? I'm really like,
Right.
because I think for most people, the answer is yes.
Yes.
But it's identifying why. Were you not allowed to hear or say or think good things about yourself? If so, self-compassion is going to be hard for you.
Right. And so in those situations, be active with those situations and how you feel. Don't shame yourself. Don't be putting yourself down. Slow down and breathe a little bit and take a break.
Yeah. You can also ask one curious question instead of reacting. That question, how old do I feel? Where do I feel it in my body? Ask yourself one of those questions instead of reacting. Journal. If you react, journal what came up. Journal what comes up in your question. Just write it down. It doesn't have to be like a big, long journal entry. It can just be, something quick.
Bullet points.
Yeah. And you don't have to fix it all at once.
You don't?
It's not going to happen.
No, this can take years in some situations to get through all of some people's trauma, and that's understood. So don't feel like you have to take it all on at once. This sometimes can take a month, or it could take some years to fully process and heal through some of the situations, and then create the new habits and beliefs.
That's the part. Not just new habits, but beliefs,
Right.
because it all comes from what you believe about, which I think hopefully we'll dive into next week. But it all comes based on what you believe about a situation, what you believe happened,
Yep.
and what you believe the people's responses in the situation were toward you.
Right.
So some just last encouraging triggers aren't proof that you're failing.
Right.
They're invitations for you to slow down, to pause, to think about yourself and the story that you have lived up until this point, and an opportunity for you to heal what has been hurt in the past.
Yep.
And so responding differently than the way that you were taught, which is not push through, suck it up, all of those things. It's learning to love yourself.
Right. And next week, we're going to be diving into those 4 triggers: fight, flight, fawn, and freeze, and how each one shows up in our relationships. And today, if today helped you, please share this, because I'm sure this will help somebody else learn some of these situations of what we're talking about, and turn into next week of seeing how to grow a little bit more. But I think a key part of this is also sharing this, because everybody deals with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So remember, healing is possible. You don't have to do it alone.
Nope.
In fact, we don't recommend you do it alone.
No.
You can find our coaching services at curatedcoalition.com. We would love to help walk with you. Just walk with you as you learn to process your triggers and identify your trigger response. So feel free to like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. My hope is that you leave here reminded that whatever you're facing, you're not crushed, abandoned, or destroyed. That's the promise of 2 Corinthians 4:8 and 9 and the heartbeat of hope through the hard. Visit curatedcoalition.com for all of our coaching services or to book your free consultation. We'll see you next time.